Welcome to your Essential Business Briefing. I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up, the mealworm maestros will speak to the co-founder of the French company trying to bring insects to our mealtimes. All at sea, the crisis facing global shipping that's hitting companies, consumers and transporters. And is a takeoff in sight for France's aerospace industry after a year of big losses and job cuts? We'll have a report from Airbus headquarters. Now first, to the French company that could help us to start eating bugs in the near future. In January, the European Food Safety Agency announced that dried yellow mealworms are safe for humans to eat. It's the first decision of its kind under the EU's novel food laws, and it opens the door for EU-wide approval. Insects like mealworms are seen as having huge potential as a low-emission source of nutrition for humans. The landmark decision by the EU agency was made after an application by the French firm AgroNutris. Let's speak to Mehdi Barada, who's the CEO and co-founder of AgroNutris, and he joins us now. Mehdi, what does this decision mean for your business?
Well, in fact, it's a great decision for the industry and for ourselves. It has been 3 years of really hard work, even 5 or 6, if you take into account the analysis that we have to do. It's a great opportunity that opens the food market for Europe, and we are very proud to have such an opportunity to be one of the pioneers in the industry in the food area.
So, what are the next stages then in the approval process?
For us, the next stages is clearly to use such an opportunity. As you may know, that we have the data protection, which means we are the only player in Europe that will be capable to address the food market. So we are working on different strategic options to address such a market and to develop some new solution for the food industry.
And in terms of regulation, what will happen now that we have that first decision of the Food Safety Agency?
First of all, this is only a favorable opinion, which is great already, and the European Commission always follow the opinion of the EFSA. But in fact, it will be totally regulated, and we will be capable to sell insects in Europe in the coming weeks and months after the definitive approval of the European Commission. That's the next step.
And what sort of uses do you see then for these mealworms once we get to the end of that process? How will we see them appear in our food chain?
For us, it will take time because the consumers will become steadily used to this kind of food and of consumption. But for us, the first area that we see as potentially creating real opportunities to develop insect food probably is the area, for example, like nutritional bars with high protein. I think it will start more on the nutritional part than on the mass market consumption. So there are some niche market that will probably be really interested in having such a kind of products.
How will you convince consumers to get over what some people are calling the yuck factor, that people are, perhaps not very encouraged to eat insect-based products?
I think it will evolve steadily, step by step. As I said, at the beginning, it will be probably addressing more niche markets, high-end markets with a nutritional dimension. The other thing is that it will come in recipes where the insects are in powder, which means that this yuck effect will be really, I would say, reduced, because we don't intend to sell product with the directly people consuming directly insects, but through flowers and powder.
I'm wondering, how did you get involved in the insect business?
Yes. In fact, I was the CEO. Before that, I was the CEO of quite a big company in the food industry, and I really wanted to. After some years ago, I wanted to really be part of an entrepreneurial adventure where I could have a positive impact on the positive impact for the future, and clearly, insect seems to me one of the most promising area, because we are really addressing some challenges of a world with 10 billion inhabitants. On one hand, we have a real shortfall of protein for the next decades, and on the other hand, insect is capable to upcycle products, which makes this solution one of the most, I would say, promising in terms of sustainability for the next years.
During the history of your company, you've drawn funding from various sources. Do you think that this decision will bring a rush of investment into this industry?
Certainly, because it's adding, in some way, it's creating more and more confidence for the investors that this market will become a real market with significant volumes. So for sure, this new is creating more, I would say, attractivity to the market. So obviously it's helping. I don't know if they need that, because there is real investors are really interested in such an industry, but it's like an additional proof that it will happen.
Okay, Mehdi Barada from Agronutris, thank you very much for joining us there on the big business of bugs. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought international travel to a near standstill, and that's having a knock-on effect on the shipping industry. Coronavirus restrictions have meant delays for ships being allowed to dock in many parts of the world. In turn, that's causing problems for shipping companies, as well as suppliers and consumers around the world. Kate Moody's here with more on this story. Kate, how big is this problem?
Well, it's global, Stephen. In December, more than a third of containers moving between the world's largest ports were shipped late, with an average delay of 5 days in January 2021 compared to just 1 day a year ago. That's contributed to a huge rise in prices. The cost of shipping a container of goods has risen over 80% since November and tripled over the past year. Costs on Chinese shipping routes are especially high because there's been a huge rise in demand for electronics and other products that are produced there. In the US, for example, there is far more demand for goods from China than the reverse, which means that logistics companies have been sending empty containers across the Pacific.
So how did this happen?
Well, the pandemic threw off what is a very finely tuned system. When factories closed, shipping was put on hold, which meant that when demand recovered, many carriers were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The continued closure of physical retailers has contributed to a buildup in ports and warehouses and a shortage in the containers that are used to transport goods. That's coincided with a shift in spending patterns, with consumers buying more clothes and electronics rather than spending on travel or eating out.
And what's the concrete impact then of all this?
Well, a lot of companies are reporting problems in their supply chains, which will affect their manufacturing, productivity, and their ability to recover from the pandemic. They've also warned that their profits will be affected. Sometimes these higher costs are passed on to consumers as well. Large, lower-cost items like refrigerators tend to see more substantial price hikes as opposed to smaller, more expensive ones like mobile phones. While the industry is trying to get back its sea legs again, if you will, analysts say it could take several months for the shipping world to return to plain sailing.
Okay, Kate Moody, thank you very much for that. Now, the aerospace industry is facing another difficult year, with demand for air travel likely to remain low for months to come. Last year, 30,000 jobs were lost in the sector in France. In the area around the city of Toulouse, more than 100,000 jobs depend on the strength of plane maker Airbus. From there, our correspondent Chris Bachman sent us this report.
While thousands of aircraft remain grounded across the globe, Airbus has seen pilot flight training on its simulators pick up worldwide recently. It's now at 70% of pre-pandemic levels.
We can see some signs of improvement, mainly in countries where the internal flights are doing a lot of activity by themselves, like China or India. Within Airbus, we expect to be back to the normal activity between 23 and 25.
In this factory, Airbus makes pylons that basically get attached to the wings. Now, production has fallen between 30 and 40% because of the pandemic. But nevertheless, the company has an order book of at least 7 to 8 years, and it believes that eventually airlines will need their planes, and therefore it has to have the workforce ready for when things do improve.
This is the Airbus-owned and operated lycée in Toulouse, where pupils between the ages of 15 and 18 learn the mechanical and technical skills that before COVID provided a 95% chance of a full-time job on the assembly lines at the end. The school spends a lot of time reassuring the students that their newly acquired skills will be needed again soon.
I trust in the future. I trust also with the health context, with the vaccine, and probably the situation will be better, and we hope we could travel all around the world very soon.
Repairing the damage to the industry may take time. In the past year, between plane makers and suppliers, 30,000 jobs have been lost in the French aerospace sector. That's around 15% of the total workforce.
That's all from us for this week. You can watch back all of our previous shows on our website, france24.com. And you'll find us on social media for your comments and questions. Until next time, thanks for watching.
France 24, your economy explained.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.